Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. Ukraine hails constructive talks with the United States and Saudi Arabia. US and Russia to meet today. Black Sea ceasefire in focus. Massive crackdown on protesters in Turkey as demonstrations continue against the arrest of Istanbul mayor. Canada readies for April 28th snap polls as Prime Minister Carney seeks strong mandate against US President Donald Trump's threats. And South Korea court rejects impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, reinstates him as acting president. Ukraine's Defense Minister Rustem Umerov led the Ukrainian delegation for talks with the US delegation in Saudi Arabia on Sunday. Defense Minister Umerov described talks with the US delegation as constructive and meaningful, focusing on protecting energy facilities and critical infrastructure. The discussions are part of US President Donald Trump's diplomatic efforts to resolve the three-year Ukraine-Russia conflict. Ukraine's defense minister later shared on social media that the talks were productive and focused, addressing key issues like energy. He emphasized President Zelensky's aim of achieving a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and Europe. The Riyadh meeting preceded Monday's scheduled US-Russia discussions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated on Sunday that the discussions with the US and Saudi Arabia were productive, and Ukraine's delegation contributed constructively to the talks.
Today marks the second meeting between the Ukrainian and US teams in Saudi Arabia, this time at a more technical level. Our military, our diplomats, and our representatives from the Ministry of Energy. I just spoke with Rustem Umerov. He briefed me on the meeting and the course of the negotiations. Our team is working in a completely constructive manner. The conversation is quite useful.
Абсолютно.
On Monday, a US delegation will pursue progress on a Black Sea ceasefire and broader efforts to end the Ukraine conflict following Sunday talks with Ukrainian diplomats. According to a source, the US delegation, led by Andrew Peake of the National Security Council and Michael Anton from the State Department, met Ukrainian officials on Sunday night and will meet with Russian officials on Monday. The goal is a Black Sea maritime ceasefire to ensure the free flow of shipping. And DD India's Akshay Dongre is closely following the story. Akshay, what are the issues that still need consensus in the US talks with both the sides, Ukraine and Russia?
Well, first and foremost, Tanvi, the question of the 5 regions that have been occupied by Russia now and the Russian armed forces is the sticking point in these peace deals or the ceasefire negotiations, as all the sides are calling it right now. Now, what are these 5 areas? One of them is Crimea, that was annexed by Russia a long time back, about a decade ago. This is a very, very important port city which gives Russia access to the Black Sea as well. Now, besides Crimea, which has already been annexed by Russia, there has been a referendum that took place where overwhelming majority of people voted to side with Russia. To be annexed by Russia. However, the other 4 are the regions that have been occupied by Russia in this war that broke out about 3 years ago. Now, Zaporizhzhia is one of those regions. Kherson, Donetsk and Luhansk. So these are the 4 regions that have been occupied by the Russian armed forces after the war broke out. Now, Russia claims that the people in these regions that also borders with the Russian borders are majority Russian speaker people, and that perhaps is the reason why they wanted to to annex with Russia, but the Ukrainian government has not been allowing, in fact, has been cracking down on the voice of people who wanted to be more closely associated with the Russian society. And this perhaps was also the main reason why this entire war broke out, besides Ukraine wanting to be in NATO, which was also because these 4 or 5 regions wanted to be annexed by Russia, and Russia also claimed that these 4 or 5 regions were originally and they should have been included in the Russian Federation's as far as the map is concerned, as well as the jurisdiction. So this is one sticking point. Even the US side has said that the elephant in the room will be the question of these 5 regions, because Russian armed forces are already there. Russia is also conducting referendums in these regions. However, the Ukrainian side has absolutely denied any kind of negotiation over these 5 regions, especially the 4 that have been occupied later by the Russian armed forces. So this is going to be the big question, how much Ukraine can actually cede as far as territory is concerned to the Russian state, and that will be the question for the existence of the Ukrainian president's political future as well. That how much negotiations can end this war, and how much negotiation and how much sacrifice will be required for the Russian armed forces to move back and for the war to end. Because without the question of these 4 or 5 regions, the conflict actually cannot end, because the other points as far as the participation in NATO is concerned, all of those are secondary questions, but the biggest sticking point will be about these regions. Back to you, Tanvi.
Okay, how much of what's being discussed is actually driven by the principles, that's Putin, Zelensky and Trump?
Well, not much as far as the principles are concerned, because the US side has already made it clear that they are viewing this entire situation as a business proposal deal, because US has already announced that they have spent about $350 billion on this war by funding Ukraine, by sending arms, ammunitions, and they want something in return now. So as long as the conflict goes on, US cannot actually extract the rare earth minerals that it is expecting to, and that perhaps is the reason why Donald Trump is also in a rush to end this conflict, so that the payback can begin from the Ukrainian side and the business deal can begin with the Russian side. However, when you look at both Russian and Ukrainian sides, their position remains almost as it was when the conflict broke out. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Akshay Dongre reporting from New Delhi on the story. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday to emphasize US support for Israel. According to State Department, Rubio discussed Israel's ongoing military operations in Gaza and efforts to help release the hostages and bring them home. The Secretary also conveyed the administration's determination to restore freedom of navigation in the Red Sea through military operations against the Iranian-backed Houthis. Australia will bring forward $1 billion in defence spending in Tuesday's federal budget to boost its military capability. Defence Minister Richard Marles said on Monday that the budget will include guided weapons manufacturer, an AUKUS submarine base and a frigate program. The funds are part of $10.6 billion for defence spending over the next 4 years, which were part of a previously announced $50 billion boost over a decade. Marles described this as the most significant defence budget increase since the Second World War.
And in the federal budget, there will be an increase in defence spending over the forward estimates of $10.6 billion. This is the most significant increase in defence spending in peacetime Australia since the end of the Second World War. Part of the $10.6 billion sees bringing forward an additional $1 billion. And that's because of the need to accelerate Australia's capability development.
Australia's army has received its first delivery of a game-changer mobile long-range US rocket system. The government in a statement on Monday said that the first 2 of a planned 42 high-mobility artillery rocket system or HIMARS launcher vehicles had already arrived from the United States. The country's acquisition of the HIMARS system was accelerated after 2023 Defence Strategic Review. That review called for a shift towards long-range deterrence with China's rapid military build-up, feeding concerns about the vulnerability of Australia's links to its trade partners and global supply chains. In response to the findings, the government announced at the time that it would spend 1.6 billion Australian dollars to expand and speed up delivery of the high-mobility artillery rocket system. As part of its deterrence strategy, Australia has already committed to equipping its navy with stealthy, long-range, nuclear-powered submarines that could retaliate with a barrage of cruise missiles. Using the guided multiple launch rocket system and the precision strike missile, HIMARS can strike targets more than 500 kilometers away. And on to Turkey now. Istanbul police clashed with protesters for a fifth consecutive night as tens of thousands rallied against the arrest of Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. İmamoğlu, a key rival of President Erdogan, was jailed pending trial on corruption charges, sparking violent protests. Demonstrators clashed with police, who responded with tear gas and pepper spray. Supporters of İmamoğlu view his arrest as a political move to silence the opposition in the country. Protests have spread nationwide, with thousands demanding İmamoğlu's release and an end to Erdogan's rule. So Turkey's main opposition, CHP, or Republican People's Party, held a symbolic primary on Sunday, drawing 15 million voters in a show of support for deposed Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. The massive turnout of 13.2 million solidarity votes from non-party members highlights İmamoğlu's broad appeal. Observers link the primary's success to the move against him, viewing İmamoğlu as a key challenger to President Erdogan. Open to all citizens, the voting saw overwhelming participation, requiring a 3.5-hour extension. İmamoğlu's arrest has ignited nationwide protests, with many seeing him as a symbol of resistance to Erdogan's rule. The CHP primary has become a rallying point for opposition, with voters across 81 cities rallying against his detention, signaling a shift in Turkey's political landscape. Trump administration officials defended their controversial use of wartime powers to deport 137 Venezuelan migrants, despite a judge blocking the action. Attorney General Pam Bondi called the deportations necessary to protect U.S. citizens, asserting that the migrants were members of the violent Tren de Aragua gang. However, Venezuela denied these claims, and relatives and advocates disputed the allegations. The administration invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, citing national security concerns. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz linked the group to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's regime. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg, who temporarily blocked the deportations, will continue investigating potential violations. Bondi criticized judicial interference, escalating tensions between the Trump administration and the U.S. judiciary, with some fearing that a constitutional crisis may be looming. Meanwhile, Trump's border czar Tom Homan told ABC News this week that he would not defy Boasberg's order, but reiterated that the Trump administration would continue its arrests of migrants they deemed dangerous.
We still have Title VIII authority to remove illegal aliens from the United States, and we're going to continue to concentrate on those who are the biggest threat to our communities, the public safety threats.
Meanwhile, U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon praised Columbia University's recent reforms as positive steps towards regaining federal funding, which was suspended over allegations of anti-Semitism on campus. Speaking on CNN, McMahon stated that negotiations to restore the $400 million in federal funds was progressing. While Columbia has defended its stance on free speech, some students and faculty have criticized the university's response to the Trump administration's pressure, signaling broader implications for other universities. You're watching DD India News. Are still to come on the show. Usha Vance, wife of US Vice President J.D. Vance, will make a high-profile visit to Greenland this week. Bolivia grapples with hailstorms as climate change worsens the rainy season. And South Korea declares a state of disaster after multiple forest fires hit the country's south. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Political campaigns have started to gather momentum after Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called a snap election for April 28th. The election in Canada comes at a time when tension with the United States is running high on the tariff front. Mark Carney is seeking votes to deal with the threat from the US, while opposition Conservatives blame Carney to be an elitist who plans to continue policy of high government spending. Other key players in the elections are Bloc Queer-Bonix and New Democratic Party. Fuzail Ahmed has more.
Leaders of political parties in Canada have started their campaign after the announcement of snap elections for April 28th. Besides handling of soaring housing costs and an affordability crisis, tariff war with the United States is likely to dominate the elections in Canada. Although the next election was not due until October 20th, Mark Carney is hoping to capitalize on a remarkable recovery by his Liberal Party in the polls since January, when Trump began threatening Canada.
Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other.
Riding the anti-incumbency wave until recently, the Conservatives now seek to rekindle the anger and disappointment associated with Justin Trudeau's economic policies. They have sought to portray Mark Carney as an elitist who plans to continue the Trudeau-era policy of high government spending.
They are the same Liberals, with the same ministers, the same MPs, the same advisors, the same policies, and even today making the same promises that they've been breaking for over 10 years. And who did they choose to bring in? Mr. Carney. Under the Liberals, led by Trudeau or Carney, what we have is out-of-touch, weak leadership. And for Mr. Carney, someone who will not stand up for our country.
On the other hand, Bloc Québécois is a key player in predominantly French-speaking province of Quebec.
I do not have the feeling that Quebecers trust so much Mr. Poilievre. And I do not have the feeling that Quebecers know so much about Mr. Carney. So if what they propose is good, they have nothing to fear, because as we did in the last 6 years, we will support what is good for Quebec.
While left-leaning New Democratic Party focuses on worker and labor issues. The announcement of elections come at a time when tensions have escalated with the United States. US presidential tariffs and calls to annex Canada have fueled anger among many Canadians. Thousands rallied in downtown Toronto for Elbows Up Canada amid US-Canada trade war. Huge demonstrations, enough to assure all that Trump trade and tariffs are going to be a major factor in these polls. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
So Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has called for snap elections to be held on April 28th. With US President Donald Trump repeatedly threatening annexation, Canadians are heading to the polls for a historic vote. The election campaign will last 36 days, the minimum allowed by law. Canada was required to hold elections no later than October 20th. Trudeau announced his resignation on January the 6th. Mark Carney succeeded Trudeau as Prime Minister on March 14th. Then Carney dissolved Parliament on March 23rd, triggering the election for April 28th. And the campaign will last 36 days, the shortest allowed by law. Canadians will elect 343 members to the House of Commons. There is an increase of 5 seats as compared to the 2021 election. Seats are awarded using the first past the post system. A party needs 172 seats to form a majority government. If no party wins a majority, party with most seats gets the chance to form the government. The government has to, however, secure the confidence of the House. Since Canada's founding in 1867, power has alternated between the Liberals and the Conservatives. The Prime Minister is Canada's head of government. The Governor-General is the official representative of the British monarch in Canada. Moving on, a high-profile U.S. delegation will visit Greenland this week to visit an American military base and watch a dog sled race as President Donald Trump promotes the idea of a U.S. annexation of the strategic semi-autonomous Danish territory. Usha Vance, wife of Vice President J.D. Vance, will lead the delegation that includes White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Energy Secretary Chris Wright. The delegation will tour historical sites, explore Greenland's heritage and attend the national dog sled race. Trump's interest in annexing Greenland stems from its vital location and also its valuable mineral resources, crucial for U.S. defense systems. However, both Greenland and Denmark have firmly opposed the idea. On to Asia now. South Korea's Constitutional Court has reinstated Prime Minister Han Duck-soo as acting president, dismissing his impeachment in a 5-1 vote. The decision follows a political crisis over suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol's alleged attempt to subvert civilian rule. Han's impeachment, driven by opposition over judicial appointments, impacts Yoon's pending impeachment case. At least 6 of the 8 justices must vote to remove Yoon. Otherwise, he will be reinstated. The court's decision has also sparked widespread protests, with hundreds of thousands of South Koreans taking to the streets over the weekend. The protests in South Korea have intensified ahead of the court verdict, with rallies for and against Yoon drawing large crowds. The situation remains volatile, with the court's ruling on Yoon's impeachment expected to exacerbate societal fissures. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra faces a no-confidence motion in Parliament starting on Monday, with the opposition accusing her of failing to address the economy and being under the influence of her powerful father, former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Despite her lukewarm approval ratings, Paetongtarn is backed by a strong parliamentary majority, making the motion unlikely to succeed. Thaksin, a decisive figure who returned to Thailand in 2023, has been vocal about his political views, influencing government policies like legalizing gambling and a $14 billion economic stimulus plan. While Paetongtarn denies his influence, the economy's slow growth and rising debt remains pressing concerns. Taiwan said that it had detained on Sunday a Chinese boat suspected of illegally supplying fuel to fishing boats trespassing in Taiwanese waters. The incident happened on Sunday off the northwest coast near the cities of Toa Yuan and Hinshu. According to Coast Guards, the boat ignored repeated warnings and zigzagged to flee before it was brought under control. The boat was carrying around 500,000 litres of fuel and had attempted to supply fuel to other Chinese vessels unlawfully entering Taiwanese waters. Illegal fishing by Chinese boats has been a recurring concern for Taiwan, which has stepped up patrols to deter unauthorized boats and activities. Families of victims in the crash of a Germanwings plane will gather on Monday in southeastern France for the 10th anniversary of the tragedy. The memorial, attended by local officials, will be held at the crash site in the French Alps. On March 24, 2015, co-pilot Andreas Lubitz deliberately crashed the A320 jet into a mountainside, killing all 150 people aboard. Investigators later revealed Lubitz was suffering from a psychotic illness which led to suicidal thoughts. However, he kept his mental health struggles hidden from his employer, Germanwings, a subsidiary of Lufthansa. The anniversary serves a painful reminder of the hidden dangers of mental health issues as families continue to mourn the loss of their loved ones. On March 23rd, Bolivia marked 146 years since losing its coastline with a civic military parade attended by President Luis Arce. The loss dates back to the War of the Pacific between 1879 and 1884, where Chile defeated Bolivian-Peruvian alliance, claiming resource-rich territories in the Atacama Desert and leaving Bolivia landlocked. During this Day of the Sea event, actually, President Arce announced plans to dissolve the Strategic Maritime Vindication Directorate and review Bolivia's legal efforts at the International Court of Justice. Despite the ICJ ruling that Chile is not obligated to negotiate sea access, Arce emphasized Bolivia's commitment to reclaiming its maritime rights through diplomacy and international law. And on the weather front, a sudden hailstorm hit Bolivia's El Alto on Sunday. Severe weather linked to climate change forced Bolivians to seek shelter and clear hail. Heavy rains extending beyond the usual March season are expected to continue through April, according to Defense Minister Novilo. Lake Titicaca nears record levels, worsening the crisis. Bolivia's Legislative Assembly approved $75 million for disaster relief, with nearly 800 homes destroyed and thousands affected. In a shocking turn of events, a section of the historic Roman bridge in Talavera de la Reina, central Spain, crumbled early Sunday morning after relentless heavy rain from Storm Martino triggered severe flooding along the Tagus River. The historic landmark, which had long stood as a proud symbol of the city's heritage, was overwhelmed by heavy flooding, taking everyone by surprise. Nearby areas were hit hard by the rising waters, forcing hundreds of people to leave their homes. Although the situation is still serious, authorities are hopeful that water levels stabilizing might prevent more damage, even as the storm continues to affect areas beyond Madrid. And in more weather news, South Korea declared a state of disaster after multiple forest fires hit the country's south, killing at least 4 and displacing hundreds. Some 620 residents in southeastern city of Ulsan and the nearby Gyeongsang province have taken shelter from forest fires that started Saturday. At least 2 firefighters have been killed in a wildfire in South Korea, and more than 200 residents in 15 southern villages have been told to evacuate. Venezuela will cut the public sector work week to 3 half days after low water levels began to threaten hydroelectric power generation. From Monday, public sector shifts will be cut to 4.5 hours in the mornings, and offices will operate on a 3-day week. Citizens have also been urged to save power in their homes. Electricity rationing has been common in inland states for 15 years, and there have been frequent lengthy blackouts since 2019, which the government has blamed on sabotage. You're watching DD India News. Are still to come on the show. Second phase of the budget session of Indian Parliament resumes today. Search operation underway by security forces in J&K, Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua after a terrorist encounter. And March 24th marks World Tuberculosis Day. We'll tell you why. welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. A quick recap of the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Ukraine hails constructive talks with the United States and Saudi Arabia. US and Russia to meet today. Black Sea ceasefire in focus. Massive crackdown on protesters in Turkey as demonstrations continue against the arrest of Istanbul mayor. Canada readies for April 28th snap polls as Prime Minister Carney seeks strong mandate against US President Donald Trump's threats. And South Korea court rejects impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, reinstates him as acting president. Next updates from India. President Draupadi Murmu will visit Chhattisgarh and Odisha on March 24th. The Indian President will grace the Silver Jubilee celebrations of the Chhattisgarh Legislative Assembly at Raipur. The President will address the MLAs in Chhattisgarh. She will be the third President to address the Chhattisgarh Legislative Assembly. Also, the President will attend the Foundation Day ceremony of Bharatiya Biswa Basu Shabar Samaj at Kalyapalli, Nayagarh, Odisha on Monday. Security has been beefed up for the President's visit. And in New Delhi, second phase of the budget session of Indian Parliament resumes on Monday with several key bills to be taken up. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will introduce the bill related to the financial proposals of the central government for the financial year 2025-26. Apart from this, grant demands related to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs will be taken up. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri will propose the amendments made by the Lok Sabha in the Oil Field Regulation and Development Amendment Bill 2024. And DD India's Anil Thomas joins us from the Parliament House in New Delhi. Anil, if you could explain to us in detail what's the main agenda for today in the Lok Sabha.
Well, good morning, Tanvi. It's going to be an action-packed day. Remember, this particular session of budget or the budget session of Parliament has been divided into two halves. We are into the second half and we are in the penultimate week of the second half of the budget session of Parliament. After, the demand for grants has been passed in Lok Sabha, today the government will try and get the finance bill passed in Lok Sabha. And that's going to be business where the government is going to try and push the clearing of the finance bill at the earliest, with some discussions, deliberations that can take place if there are no disruptions by the opposition. But all in all, that's the most important thing, because there are still many important bills that are lined up in this particular session of Parliament that needs to be presented, that needs to be tabled. So the government would go all out in first making, getting the finance bill cleared, and then look at other important bills that need to be presented in the Parliament, because this particular budget session of Parliament, there were many bills that the government proposed, that the government planned, that have still not hit or that has still not been tabled. So the government going all out in trying to make, first of all, this particular budget session where the demand of grants on Friday managed to get clearance, looking at the finance bill today, maybe a day or two, and then if the entire week is gone on that, they will be looking at the remainder of the last week of the budget session where they're looking at important bills to be tabled in the House.
Okay, how much of an action is going to be expected in the Rajya Sabha, particularly on that Judge Cash Hall case?
Well, many adjournment motions under Rule 267 have been moved. The chairman of the House has called both the leaders, the leader of the Treasury bench, JP Nadda, as well as the leader of the opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, for a meeting to get a sense of what exactly needs to be done and how the House needs to proceed. There are two important deliberations that need to take place. One on the Oil Fields Amendment Bill and the other is on the Banking Amendment Bill, the two bills that need to be discussed and deliberated in the Rajya Sabha. But I think the judge, High Court Judge Cash Rao is something that's going to take precedence, and that's going to be at least simmering outside the Parliament before the Parliament begins today. And the chairman of the House clearly indicating getting both the leaders to come for a brief or a meeting before the House convenes is indicative of the government trying to do its best to make sense of the evolving situation. And looking at the fluidity of the situation, one cannot understand where this particular issue is headed. But then the chairman giving all steps covered, seeing to it that some kind of sense can be made of the developments that have taken place to date.
Okay, thank you very much, Anil. Anil Thomas reporting from the Parliament House in New Delhi. Several Indian parliamentarians participated in a car rally in Delhi on Sunday afternoon. This was the 9th edition of the rally, which was first organized in 2010. MPs Anurag Thakur, Rajiv Pratap Rudy, Minister for Civil Aviation K. Ram Mohan Naidu took part in the rally, which was flagged off by Minister for Parliamentary Affairs Kiran Rijiju. JK Tyres company has been organizing the rally to promote road safety and awareness of rules on the road.
We are very proud to be associated with the Constitution Club of India, and this is our 9th edition, and we started this in 2010, and our main objective is road safety and drive safe, and in our motto is also drive safety, drive responsible, and be in total control.
The Indian Army, along with the Jammu and Kashmir Police, are carrying out a cordon and search operation at Hiranagar sector near the Indo-Pak international border. The joint operation was launched by Jammu and Kashmir Police and Indian Army in the general area of Sanial in Hiranagar sector on Sunday night, after the security forces received inputs regarding the presence of terrorists. This comes after a firing incident was reported in the Hiranagar area of Katwa during a search operation by security forces. Jammu and Kashmir Director General of Police Nalin Prabhat also reached Hiranagar to personally monitor the ongoing operation. Security forces busted a major terrorist hideout in a remote forest area in Poonch district of Jammu and Kashmir, leading to the recovery of a huge cache of arms and explosives. The hideout was unearthed during a joint operation by Rashtriya Rifles and Special Operations Group of local police in Sarabara near the Sangla top during the day-long operation. However, no one was arrested during the operation. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a meeting with the officials regarding the law and order and upcoming festivals in the state. During the meeting, Chief Minister Yogi stated that all the upcoming festivals in the state should be celebrated peacefully and that no work should be done against tradition. Police foot patrolling should be increased and should remain active. A special deployment of women police personnel at religious places should be done, and it was also instructed that strict vigil should be kept on border areas. The Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, will hold month-long celebrations across the state to showcase the achievements of the Yogi Adityanath government in the last 8 years. The BJP brass will engage with the public through various events to be held from March 24th to April 14th to communicate the accomplishments of the government over the past 8 years. March 24th marks World Tuberculosis Day, a reminder of the urgent need to eliminate one of the world's deadliest infectious diseases. This year's theme, Yes We Can End TB, Commit, Invest, Deliver, highlights the importance of global commitment, investment and action in combating TB. In India, the government is accelerating efforts to eliminate the disease by this year.
World Tuberculosis Day is observed every year on March 24, the date when Dr. Robert Koch discovered the bacterium responsible for tuberculosis in 1882. Over a century later, TB remains a major global health crisis, causing millions of deaths and imposing severe social and economic burdens. TB is a highly contagious airborne disease primarily affecting the lungs. The infection spreads when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or spits, releasing bacteria into the air. Drug-resistant TB is an emerging challenge, making treatment more difficult. This year, India is intensifying its fight against tuberculosis. Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare Anupriya Patel inaugurated the India Innovation Summit, pioneering solutions to end TB in New Delhi on March 18.
The National TB Elimination Program is steadily progressing towards the goal of TB elimination from the soil of India and has made some key achievements. WHO's Global TB Report 2024 has also acknowledged that the incidence rate of TB in India has shown a 17.7% decline from 237 per lakh population in 2015 to 195 per lakh population in 2023.
The National TB Elimination Programme states that the number of missing cases has been reduced from 15 lakh in 2015 to 2.5 lakh in 2023. According to WHO's Global TB Report 2024, the incident rate of TB in India has shown a 17.7% decline from 237 per lakh population in 2015 to 195 per lakh population in 2023. TB deaths have reduced by 21.4% from 28 per lakh population in 2015 to 22 per lakh population in 2023. Minister Patel also added that TB treatment coverage in India increased by 32% in last 8 years from 53% in 2015 to 85% in 2023. In India's northeastern state of Meghalaya, Ridalin Shulai, a 33-year-old TB survivor from East Khasi Hills, opened up about her personal battle with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis.
TB itself, which has an attachment with stigma, So when they are diagnosed with TB, most of the champion, they don't want to share their status. I realized that counseling is such a powerful tool for TB champions because with the side effects of the medicines, it really plays, and psychological effects as well. So emotional support is what they needed the most.
As the world works towards ending tuberculosis, India's rapid progress and innovative approaches offer hope for a future free of this disease. The challenge remains tough, but with sustained efforts and global collaboration, TB elimination is very much within reach. Bureau Report, DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Let's meet India's rising para-archery star Payal Nag on the other side. And Canadians were treated to Sinfonia Masala, a fusion of Indian and Western music.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to some business news now. Well, financial markets made a mixed start on Monday with US stock futures rising but the dollar wavering ahead of a week driven by data, Chinese earnings and the threat of steep US tariff hikes on the horizon. The week holds Global Purchasing Managers Index gauges the US Federal Reserve's preferred inflation reading, inflation data in Australia and Japan, and a budget update in Britain and major earnings report in China. But it is unlikely to be updates on US President Donald Trump's plans to go for global reciprocal tariffs from April 2nd that drives markets. And after a volatile month for stocks, bonds and currencies, analysts say that there is no obvious trade ahead. So talking of Asian markets, stocks swung on Monday as investors braced for US tariffs set to begin on April 2nd with fears of global economic damage looming ahead. US President Donald Trump's threats to impose tariffs on key trading partners spooked markets despite reports suggesting a more targeted approach. While Trump hints at Liberation Day next Wednesday, uncertainty continues to fuel volatility. The Federal Reserve warned of increased economic uncertainty, echoed by central banks in Japan and Britain. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang cautioned of shocks beyond expectations. As tensions rise, markets react, with Tokyo holding steady, Shanghai and Singapore slightly up, while Hong Kong, Sydney, Seoul and Wellington markets dipped. And time now for some sporting action. Updates from the Khelo India Para Games. Well, some stories are meant to inspire, some journeys redefine possibilities. One such story is of Payal Nag, a young girl from Odisha who lost her hands and feet in a tragic accident. Life could have been overbearing, but this did not deter her. Today she is India's rising para archery star, proving that nothing is impossible. DD India's Narayan Singh brings us this exclusive report from the Khelo India Para Games in New Delhi.
She was once known for drawing faces. Today she draws her bowstring. Meet Payal Nag, the world's only archer without hands and feet. She was discovered in an orphanage in Odisha. In her very first competition, she became the national champion.
मेरे पास कुछ डिवाइस नहीं था उस टाइम, तो सर ने ही खुद अपने हाथों से बनाए हैं डिवाइस जो कि मैं चलाती हूँ. तो मैं पहले 2 पैर से चलाती थी, अब 1 पैर से चलाती हूँ. सर ट्रेनिंग ना देते तो मैं नेशनल मेडल भी नहीं ले सकती थी. सर के ट्रेनिंग के वजह से ही मैं नेशनल मेडल भी ले चुकी हूँ. आज खेलो इंडिया तक भी पहुँच चुकी हूँ. तो खेलो इंडिया में भी बहुत अच्छा रहा, बहुत अच्छा लगा मुझे खेल के.
Payal's journey began in Balangir, Odisha. She lost her hands and feet in an accident at the age of 5. Life was tough, but the fate had other plans. Her coach Kuldeep Vedwan brought her to Jammu and he designed a special device for her.
She is the first archer in the world who don't have a forelimb. When she went the first competition in Jaipur, January, so there she won 2 gold. I'm very happy on that day because my 2 students, the Sheetal Devi and Payal Nag, they was on podium. The Payal Nag and Sheetal Devi, they are playing for gold medal. And there the Payal Nag won gold medal. So that is the historical medal.
This year in January, she defeated Paralympic medalist Sheetal Devi to become the national champion. Payal lifts her bow with her foot. She pulls the string with her shoulder. She is rewriting the rules of para-archery. She is preparing for the world ranking tournament in Thailand. Her ultimate goal is 2028 Paralympics gold. The journey of Payal Nag is a story of determination and courage and the power of self-belief. Her journey from an orphanage in Odisha to the archery field in Jammu defied all odds and limitations placed before her. Without no legs and no hands, she could have given up, but she picked up a bow and aimed for greatness. This is just the beginning, and the world is watching her now. With camera person Kashyap, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
And DD India's Narayan Singh is stationed at the venue of the games. Narayan, it's the 4th day of the Khelo India Para Games. We saw your story on Payal Nag. Tell us who are the other stars in making at the games.
Definitely, Tanvi, a very good morning. And multiple stars are there, multiple stories are there coming from the Khelo India Para Games. And yesterday, as we just saw the story of Payal Nag, it shows that India has a comfortable and a great system which is accessible to the athletes. And yesterday also we saw multiple records were broken. Jasmeet of Punjab created new national record in the powerlifting. Manish also created new national record in the powerlifting. Ramesh of Tamil Nadu won first 3 medals in track and field and became the first athlete to win 3 gold medals in the track and field. And similarly, we saw in the shooting range also our athletes are doing exceptionally well. But rather than winning medals, their story of courage, determination, that makes them different despite of multiple problems, struggles in their life. They never, we can say that, just surrender to the life, and despite of that, all the difficulties, struggle, and also the policies of the government, they stood very tall and won, we can say that, everything that came in front of them. And Sheetal Devi, we know that the para-archer from Jammu, the way she defied all odds, won gold medals at the Asian Games, Para-Asian Games, and also medals at the Paralympics. And now the emerging star, Payal Nag. Such stories, we can say that, just brings inspiration not to the athletes in the whole society and also bring a sense of awareness among the people. In the past, there was a scenario where people they says that after just getting injured, if they met any accident, they say it looks like that their life is over. But now, with opportunities coming in front of them, we have met multiple stars, multiple problems. When they say that when they met an accident, they thought that their life is over, but when through the various policies, we can say that the robust ecosystem of the Indian sport, when they got opportunities, they won medal, and the world saw their achievement.
Yes.
Then they realized that definitely nothing is impossible if you have a determination and desire.
Yes, of course, our Paralympians have made us time and again proud. Thank you very much, Narayan Singh, for reporting on the story. All-rounder Shardul Thakur has signed with Lucknow Super Giants as a substitute for Mohsin Khan, who has been ruled out of the 18th season of the Indian Premier League. Thakur will be part of the LSG team in Visakhapatnam, where the Rishabh Pant captain team begins its campaign with an away game against Delhi Capitals on Monday. Mohsin suffered an ACL tear in his right knee while competing in the Vijay Hazare Trophy in December last year. Shardul has played for 5 franchises in IPL so far. He has taken 67 wickets in 95 matches and has a batting strike rate of 139, making him a very useful all-rounder. And next we have a spectacular story of musical fusion and cultural harmony. Sinfonia has kicked off its season with Sinfonia Masala, blending the rich traditions of Indian classical music with the grandeur of Western orchestral sounds. It all happened at the Ancaster Memorial Arts Centre in Canada, where audiences were treated to a captivating performance that beautifully showcased what can happen when voices and instruments unite across traditions. Tarun Paul has filed this report.
In the hush of a cool spring evening, a symphony of spices and sounds beckons at the Ancaster Memorial Arts Centre. East met West in a musical fest. Sinfonia Masala blended Indian and Western classical music like a fragrant masala, each note a spices in a right sonic curry. It's Sinfonia Ancaster first concert of the year, and it draws its inspiration from the very idea of masala, the Indian spice mix.
It's one thing that artists are talking and taking our culture overseas, but also having to fuse it with the Western music and then come up with a concept which is so unique. It's about our Indian music, Indian classical forms, and then how they interact with the Western form. So that is very exciting, and it's first time happening in this part of the world.
No matter where the music is from, it's such a good way of bringing people together.
While talking to the listeners, they said that the Indian raga can echo the emotions of Beethoven's sonata, and how a Western orchestra can embrace the rhythm of a tabla. The centerpiece of the night was Meri Sakhi Ki Awaaz, my sister's voice. A smile composition, true to its name, is a piece about sisterhood at its core. It asks, what does sisterhood sounds like when two women from different musical cultures create space for each other's voices?
It's always such a pleasure to perform. I probably have been on a stage since I was very young, but still every single time is fresh. It's always an electric energy to be able to sing and share my art with people.
First thing I would remember is dancing to Indian classical music, which has just got lost now. So earlier when we were young, we used to have trainings and classes which were around classical music. So that's what I remember.
We both love Western classical, and to be able to see a fusion of Indian classical with Western classical, it's amazing. We're very looking forward to it.
You can see all kinds of walks of life here today. Everybody's really interested in learning about how the music all kind of fuses together. It's beautiful.
As the attendees drifted out into the spring night, many lingered reluctant to let the magic go. They had tasted a new harmony and felt its warmth in their hearts. In the word of music director Jeff Pollock, this was truly a glorious celebration of sisterhood across culture, an evening that reminded everyone that when voices unite, the world can, for a moment, sound just like music. From Canada, this is Tarun Paul Singh.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. You can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks around DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.